Hi, I'm Riley Moynes, author of The 4 Phases of Retirement and its sequel, The 10 Lessons. We're speaking with people who are squeezing all the juice out of their retirement, people with widely divergent backgrounds, experience, and expertise, people with stories that can inspire and encourage you too to squeeze all the juice out of your retirement. Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. Here we go. My guest today is a longtime friend. His name is Dennis Parass. We met well over 40 years ago in the hospital where each of our wives had arrived to give birth to our first child. Dennis is an engineer and an MBA by training, and his working career has taken he and his family for several years to Brazil and to Spain. On his return home to Canada, he acquired a small custom manufacturing company which designed and manufactured specialized lifting equipment for the automotive industry. Later, he became involved in the entertainment industry, where they produced specialized moving stages for use in Las Vegas, a huge casino in China, and for Royal Caribbean cruise lines. He sold his company in 2011. Dennis is also, in my opinion, a Renaissance man with skills and long-term interests in areas such as photography, as well as interior design and renovation. Now, in our conversation today, we're going to focus more on his post-career activities and involvements. But first, Dennis, I want to welcome you here and ask you to tell us the story of how you got the contract in Las Vegas.
That's really a really interesting story. We were approached by a company out of Las Vegas that was involved with the building of the Bellagio Theater. And the theater, if you're not aware of it, is a 6,000 square foot swimming pool, 25 feet deep, sorry. And they had intended to build a lift system in there, and at the last minute realized that wouldn't work, and they found this little company up in Canada. And my sales manager came in and said, I've got this inquiry from Vegas, and this started in July, and we were really busy, and I said, what is it? And he said, well, it's they want 4 1,000 square foot lifts. Really? I said, how much do they go up and down? He said, 20 feet. I said, 20 feet? We've never built anything near that big. Is there anything else I need to know? He says, yeah, they're all underwater. And so I was kind of like, okay, I'm busy, let's just move on. But he politely kept in contacting with them, and they kept on coming back. And we finally gave them some pricing. I think it was like $3 or $4 million, kind of a go-away thing. And they called him to go to Vegas. And I said, well, go ahead and talk to them, I guess, and see what happens. He comes back, and he sits down with me. We happen to be having the children's Christmas party for the company. And I said, how'd it go? And he says, well, they want us to go ahead and build them. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, so do you have a purchase order? He said, no. I said, well, do you have a letter of intent? He said, no. Well, then how do we get started? And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a check for $875,000. And we U.S. Yeah, U.S. And we built that system, and it's been still running. It's more than, I think, 14 years now. Right. And that whole thing led to us ending up building a $20 million project in Macau, China, that was even bigger than the one there. And now on the Royal Caribbean cruise lines, there's 5 ships that have underwater stage lifts built by my company. It was kind of a fun thing. And I liked the company because it was kind of a engineer's sandbox. You build different things, and I like being unique. Yeah. I think all of us are, and it's nice to know that you can also have a job and do things that are a little different.
Yeah, and you continue to do so. Now, Dennis sold his company in 2011, and Dennis, you've told me that initially you found retirement, which to you is changing jobs, challenging. Why was that the case for you?
Well, you go from a situation that is from where you're busy all the time with business. I was involved in local volunteering for different things in the community, your family, all these sort of things. But the business took a lot of your time, and all of a sudden you have all this time and the choices to make decisions about how you spend your time. And I'm not a person who feels very comfortable just lying around. I need to be getting going. And the other thing I think was difficult is that when we're so involved with business, and we have friends, but guys generally don't have a lot of friends like the gals do. And so all of a sudden I just want to have more relationships with people. So I found that initially kind of, how do I spend my time? What do I do? I've got these choices now that I didn't have before. But I had kind of started before this all happened to prepare for the idea of a change in jobs. I don't like the word retirement. It was created by Bismarck in 1890 because they had too many people in the country and wanted to create jobs. But we were never designed to just sit still. And so it's just, to me, it's changing jobs and trying to find the job you like, or it was the challenge.
Well, you've been doing a lot of jobs that you like in retirement, and we're just going to have a discussion about some of them because it's really, really wide-ranging. So you continue to have some board involvements post-retirement. Tell me about those.
Yeah, I'm on the board of a company in Canada, actually, a privately owned company that really drew my attention. I do it for nothing. I've told them that. But they do pay me. But I really like the ethics and the character of the company, and they have about 700 employees and have grown rapidly. And so I've found that really interesting to be involved and see a good company being run by really people who care about the community and the environment, as well as earning a good living. So I like doing that.
Continuing with them. Now, your son created a company called Questica, and the background was that it was going to be support really for your company, and it's evolved into something quite a lot different that you've been involved with. Tell us about the Questica Quest.
Yeah, this is probably one of the things that I made a mistake on that turned out really good. We had, one of the things I got involved in my company was creating a information system, a software system to run my kind of business, which was custom design manufacturing. And so my son, using him, we started to develop this software, and then we decided we should take it and make it for other people. And I thought we were going to just sell these things like hotcakes. And we created this company in 1998, and it was a struggle from the very beginning. And I felt bad because I got my son into this, but about 2.5 years later, through a twerk of fate, they got involved in something totally different, but using their skills, which had to do with public sector budgeting software.
Right.
And the little thing that we started continues on to this day, and I'm still a little bit involved from a volunteer point of view. But the other thing that spun out of this business became, he's got over 120 employees. They've recently merged with another 4 other companies in the States, and it's a big company now. And my mistake, the stuff that I started has kind of dwindled on the side.
But I remember over the years you telling me, and I would ask you, how was Questica coming along? And you had a great analogy that you used to share with me all the time. Tell us that
it was probably my way of not saying bad news, but it seemed like it was like a plane taking off. You know, you kind of get off the ground a bit, and then you'd bounce back on the ground, and you were hoping the runway was long enough to survive getting up in the air, which he did, despite my initial thoughts that we were going to do so well in this first software.
Now, your sons were concerned about you being busy enough in your retirement, so they had a solution for you.
Oh, yeah. 3 years ago, well, I have to go way back about 20 years ago, I restored a 1983 Triumph TR6 ground up. Now, I had a lot of resources because I had the company at the time. But I've always been interested in taking things apart. Getting them back together has always been more of a challenge.
Mechanical engineers do that.
Yeah, my wife blames me for taking things apart and not being able to get them back together. And so a few years back, they decided they didn't know what to get me, and they decided they're going to surprise me with a project. And they got this 1963 Vespa scooter that they say is a special model. And it was a rust bucket gave it to me, and so I've just about finished restoring that. And it's been kind of fun because it's a totally new experience dealing with something other than a car.
All right. Now, you spend a fair amount of time here in Florida, I know, and one of your involvements here is that you help out with an organization referred to as the Model United Nations. Tell me about your involvement there and what you get out of it.
Yeah. A neighbor here in the community who I know really well introduced me to this. all throughout the United States, and it's in Canada, and it's over in Europe too. There are schools that have clubs that are called Model UN, and these clubs compete with each other. These schools compete with each other, and basically they are following the same procedures that are used in the United Nations, same protocols, and they compete. And so once a year here we have a big one where we have, I think it's 15 high schools, about 250 students. And they get together and they compete representing different countries on about 12 different sessions of the United Nations.
Right.
Why I got involved? It was so impressive to see these young people who are bright, intellectual, and to me they represent the good things about America, because this is where I am now. The fact that the future is bright for this country because of young people like this. Mm-hmm. And considering we see so much news where you see all the terrible things that are happening or some of the behaviors of young people and you feel they're adrift, these young people aren't. And this is really impressive that they get involved in this. And they're articulate, and and many of them end up in careers towards international work. And I just like the idea of being around special people.
Right. So it happens once a year.
Yep.
And what is your involvement? What kind of are the specific things?
I'm involved with the parts of getting all the judges. This year we have about 55 judges. We have 12 sessions, so there's going to be 4 to 5 judges in each session. These are all people from this area who are quite seasoned people of my age group. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but these are people all volunteer to be involved in this because they see the same thing in these young people. So my role is to help get the judges and then organize all these judges and get their first 3 choices of the 12 different sessions. It's kind of a technical thing to work out who gets in what judge gets in what session.
Right.
So it's kind of a technical thing a little bit.
But it needs to be done, and
and it's fun. And these are great people too.
You're also interested and involved with the Naples Council of World Affairs.
Yeah, this is a great organization that brings guest speakers every 2 weeks over the entire winter to this area, and we have in the 2 sessions that go on like at 3:00 in the afternoon. I think at 7:00. There'll be 1,500, 2,000 people there listening to these speakers. Wow. And they are basically dealing with topics that are of world importance, whether it's climate or population or issues that we see in the news. And you get kind of a real in-depth insight. And I like that because I like to understand more about what's the different sides of an issue. Mm-hmm.
And you've been involved with that for several years now.
Yeah, that's probably going on about 5 years. And a spin-off from that Naples Council of World Affairs is the Great Decisions Group. There is there's 8 sessions, 8 weeks in a row we meet, and there's a booklet with a explanation of the topic, and you can read. It's usually about 8 or 10 pages, and there's a video that's online too. So, for example, this week we're dealing with climate change and all the information about it. And there's about 3 groups right where I am involved here with about 25 people. We all meet in a room and everybody reads this ahead of time, and we discuss it and we kind of get different viewpoints. And I've always wanted to know the 2 sides of an argument or stuff. I really have a problem when people are just polarized into this is all I understand. This is my point of view, and I don't want to hear anything else.
Right. You're also, and have been for a long time, interested in photography, but you've kind of focused in on wildlife photography, and that's led to some interesting opportunities and some travel.
Yeah, one of the things that I like doing, I like seeing different cultures and seeing different places, but I'm not that keen about doing the bus tours and the classic stuff. I do some of that stuff with my wife, but I like to go to places where you wouldn't normally go as a tourist. Mm-hmm. And I've been involved with the photography since Riley and I have known each other.
Right.
And so since I retired, I kind of upped the game a lot and moved heavily into wildlife photography. And I've been to Brazil, to the Pantanal. I've been to Costa Rica twice, to Namibia, And last summer I was in Ecuador, and we're going out into the hinterlands and shooting pictures. And I like to see the culture, the people, and it's tourism with a little different spin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, here in our community, and we're in Spring Run, which is in the southwest part of Florida. There are lots of ways that people here can get involved and do get involved in all kinds of activities and lifelong learning. And you've also contributed there as well. Now, Dennis, I know that in the past you have offered photography sessions for the lifelong learning program that goes on here. And you're also now involved with a group called the Neighborhood Representatives. So tell me about that one.
Yeah. In the administration of this gated community, each community within this development has a neighborhood representative that represents the people from that little community. Mm-hmm. Like the one I live in has about 50 houses involved. And so these neighborhood representatives get together once every month to just share information about how they're doing things, to learn how they might, improve what they're doing. Also to understand what the board is doing and some of the projects that are going on and get information. So I've been involved in that, and I'm chair of that right now. Mm-hmm. And it's just a communication thing.
Right.
I do want to say that for me, one of the important underpinnings of my retirement has been coming to a community like this. We come down here for the winter, 5-6 months, and the thing from here is that you get to meet a lot of people who are in a similar situation. I wasn't sure when I retired, where am I going to find my friends other than Riley? Because we all live far. Our best friends we probably know from college or high school, and they live in different parts of the country, right. And I thought, how am I going to have more relationships? But coming to a place like this for the winter, within a year or two, I've made great friends. And so this is a good place to have a lot of fun. And I jokingly say it's like when you were about 8 years old and you went out in the street and you met all your buddies and you played all day and came home and had supper. And that's exactly what happens here. It's a lot of fun.
And part of that is that you become involved as a cyclist, which is a new venture for you.
Oh, yeah. The first time I got onto a bicycle here, and I sent a picture back to my guys back at the office, they were stunned that I was actually doing that. Yeah, so we cycle a couple, 3 times a week and do, 40, 50K ride. And it's good. It's good exercise, kind of thing, yeah.
And some socializing as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tonight I'm going out with the guys. There's a book club that the gals belong to, so the girls go in the book club. About 6 of us guys go out for dinner and have laughs. It's just fun. It's like being 7 years old again, or maybe 12.
When you retired, did you know that you would head down this kind of path, or did it kind of emerge for you, Dennis?
I think it kind of emerged, though. We certainly started to come down here a little bit before I actually retired, just to take a winter vacation. Mm-hmm. And that's actually it was because of Riley that we ended up in this particular community. But I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But that's kind of the fun, too, is that I didn't want to have a planned life. I'd like to have some surprises, too. Mm-hmm. And this was a wonderful decision. So, I didn't have a clear idea.
No master plan.
Yeah.
When you these current involvements, Dennis, do you see them as kind of an extension or an adaptation of your earlier work, or do they really represent something brand new? And I guess there's maybe a combination of those things because you've got a lot of activities going on.
Well, I never thought of myself as being the president of Handling Specialty. I certainly didn't want that on my tombstone. I always was interested in other things, even when I had the company. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was about the variety. I really like to jump around a bit and do a little bit of different things. I think it's a change of the balance. You want to be balanced in your life, the different things. The balance was heavily involved with my business, along with my family and in the past, in the community, but now I had all the time to replace the business with. And so it was kind of a rewiring in that sense of finding and having the freedom to do what you want to do. I mean, you could be president of a company, but you really want to do is be a bartender. I mean, you just can do it. There's no reason not to.
So Dennis, you've got a lot going on here. And so tell me, What do you get out of it? What's in it for you, and why do you do all these things? And I know that there are a variety of reasons why you do them, but let's just sort of tick off some of them. What?
I would say that I enjoy doing things for other people. It just makes me feel good, and so I like to be volunteering. I'll say to help out, and so for example, that I mentioned that the company had this software that we originally started with, which became a minor player, like a 5% of the company, and we spun it off into another little company with 2 or 3 employees, and I helped them out. I talked to companies around the United States and Canada who are looking at that kind of software, and I just do it. I don't get paid. I just do it because I enjoy talking to people, and I have a lot of knowledge in that area.
Right.
So I'd say that for me, I enjoy helping other people, and that's great.
And you've told me about some of the new relationships that have been created for you as you become involved in this community in particular. That's an important part for you too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think the friends, the people here are just so nice, and I would say that'd be the case in our age group anywhere you go, regardless of what you're involved in. Once you set aside marking the score based on what job you have or what position you have, and you just basically are a person, and you just you find other people are like-minded, and you have fun together. And again, I come back when you were 8 or 10 years old, and you had your buddies, and it's fun.
It's a great analogy. Now, one of the themes, and in fact the predominant theme, and in fact the title of our podcast series is "Squeezing All the Juice Out of Retirement." So, I want to ask you what that phrase means to you when you hear it.
For me, it's about having a full day every day, being able to do things that you want to do, and you do things you don't want to do too. But basically, having the freedom to do that. I like the idea of feeling young all the time. I mean, we don't. I think there was a thing that was going around the internet about a few months ago about I think it was one of the actors. Clint Eastwood, and he's quite old, and they asked him how come he kept on working and why didn't he get old. He says, I don't let the old man in. The attitude you have about yourself, is what makes a difference. So by cycling, by traveling, by being involved in different things, I continue to feel young and healthy, and that to me is important. Not to decide you're on your end of your career sort of thing.
Last legs.
Yeah, right.
We sometimes talk about the phrase or the suggestion that you shouldn't retire, but that you should rewire. You have a different way of putting it. You say that we were not designed to retire, just to change jobs. Tell our listeners a little bit about why you think that's so important.
I think, first of all, the whole idea of retire, as I mentioned earlier, was simply a construct that Otto Bismarck in Germany in the 1890s created. They didn't retire before that. You simply continued on in life. So I just see this as a milestone where you decide, I'm finished with what I'm doing right now. And there are people that really enjoy their jobs, and they continue to work for many years, and as far as I'm concerned, they are retired. If you're doing what you like, you are retired, okay? You are getting the best out of life. It isn't about leaving a job to do something else. But if a time comes where you say, I've done my deal here, and I think it's time to get involved in more things.
Yeah, move on.
That's what you do, and so you're changing jobs in a way, but the job is to keep on doing things and to have a reason to get up in the morning.
That's the key part, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. We hear over and over again. In fact, one of the statistics that I read recently was that the highest rate of suicide in North America is men 75 years of age and older, which sounds astounding from one perspective, but what we understand, I think, happens is that they tend to get isolated, and they don't have these kind of relationships, and they don't continue to keep active, and so the world closes in on them and doesn't look as appealing as it does for people who are more actively involved, like you are. Dennis, what plans do you have for the future?
Well, more of the same, I think. I go through cycles. Like I've been on this NRC committee for about 4 or 5 years, and it's time now to kind of do something else. Yep. The board that I'm on, I thought they were finished with me a couple of years ago, but they wouldn't let me go. But at some point,
that's nice.
And so I'll just keep on. And I'd like to. We're traveling a bit, and I'm still involved with the photography.
Sure.
And I'm watching our grandkids grow up, and we're trying to be a model to them and to be involved in their lives. And that's an investment that we all want to make if we have families. Sure. And I think that's an important point, too, is that sometimes we're so involved with our jobs that we can't spend as much time as we want to with our kids, but our grandkids are the future, and this is an opportunity to be there without being distracted by the work you have.
Yeah, exactly. Dennis, I want to thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to being and spending time with you here in Southwest Florida for years to come.
Yeah,
thanks very much.
And we'll get to travel again, too.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and that you'll join us again next time as we help you squeeze all the juice out of retirement. I'm Riley Moynes. Bye for now.